something's happening. Something strange, something different, something mysterious, something revolutionary. And it's changing everything. Our lesson this morning starts with Jesus taking his disciples. He only had 4 at the time, Peter, Andrew, James, and John. But he takes them up on a mountain. He's going to teach them because, well, they clearly have no clue what's going on. I mean, it wasn't just a short time ago. They were minding their own business, literally minding their own business. They were fishing, mending their nets, going about their day-to-day activities. But along comes Jesus. And he says, come, follow me. They have no idea who he is or what he's about or where he's going. They feel something different, something strange and unusual, something revolutionary, something compelling. So compelling, in fact, that they just drop what they're doing. They leave everything they know behind, and they follow Jesus. Jesus leads them through the villages and the towns of Galilee, stopping around in the synagogues where he begins to preach this message. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is near. What he's saying is that in him, in Jesus, this kingdom of heaven has come into the world. And so what he's asking these people to do is to turn from looking at the way of the world, living the ways the world lives, to turn and to embrace this new kingdom, this kingdom of heaven that he's bringing into being. The disciples have no idea what's going on. But as if to show them what he means by like a children's sermon in a sense, he goes out and he starts to heal all the sick. He cures every illness and every disease. And the disciples just sort of stand back, kind of in awe, as the crowds begin to gather around Jesus. More and more people begin to follow him as he goes from town to town. And they have no idea what's going on. Who is this guy and what's he about? But they sense it, they feel it. Something's happening. Something strange and unusual, something revolutionary. And it's changing everything. Sensing that his disciples don't know what's going on, Jesus takes him up on the mountain. He sits down and he begins to tell them who he is and what he's about. It's as if he's saying, you know this kingdom of heaven that I'm bringing in, that I'm talking about? This is what it's like. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those people who are beaten down, those people who have been trod underfoot, those people who have been pushed to the side, those people who have had just the life sucked right out of them. Blessed are they. Blessed are those who mourn. Not only those who mourn the loss of family members and loved ones, but those the people of Israel who mourn the loss of a way of life, who are now living under oppression and persecution. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are those who are persecuted. Blessed are the peacemakers. In other words, Jesus is saying, blessed are all the people that we would ordinarily not think of as being blessed at all. In this kingdom of heaven that Jesus has come to bring, everyone is blessed. These blessings, they're a game changer. Because they challenge us to a whole new way of understanding how the world works. They challenge us to a whole new understanding of who we are and how we are to be in God's kingdom. So Jesus, again, he goes out to heal the sick. Not because they've done anything that shows any level of righteousness. Not because they've made any profession of faith. He goes out to heal them simply because they're sick. They need to be healed. In the same way, God loves each and every one of us. Not because we, again, have made any profession of faith or even if we know Jesus. God loves us simply because we need to be loved. This vision that Jesus paints for us is almost too good to believe, right? It's too good to be true. And you know what they say about things that are too good to be true, don't you? They tend not to be. But that's not the case here. Jesus is saying, this is the way this kingdom of God works. It's something different. It's something strange and unusual. It's something revolutionary. It's changing everything. And so Jesus goes on to tell the disciples what this change looks like. And he says to them, you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. He doesn't tell them you should be the salt of the earth or you should be the light of the world. He doesn't tell them you need to learn to be that. He says, you are. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. You can imagine those disciples. They're already confused by all this other stuff that Jesus has been saying. You can just hear him saying, Jesus, can you tell us a little more what you mean by that? Well, think about it. What does salt do? There's a couple of common things that we often hear when we talk about this lesson, right? We talk about salt as you put it on food, right? And it adds a little bit of extra flavor, it spices it up, right? It makes things a little more, gives it a little more life. Jesus is saying, we are the salt of the earth. We are about giving some life to this world that lives in darkness. This light that's been beaten down by the ways of the world. Which for me is a good argument for saying, to remind us that, to go to church and to be a Christian is not one of those somber, serious kind of things that people often make it out to be, right? You don't have to come to church and certainly we don't do that here, which is one of the things I like about this church. But church is full of joy, and life is full of joy, and salt of the earth, we help people to find that joy in the ways that we help them out and care for them and reach out to people in need. The second thing that salt does, especially in Jesus' day, was to preserve food, to keep it from going bad. And as the salt of the earth, again, one of our jobs is to keep things from going bad, to help people who are going through difficult times, to sit with them and to talk with them and to be with them and to help them know that someone is there in difficult times of their lives. That they can count on someone to be there to help walk them through. So things just don't go completely south, but there's someone there to help us see again the good in life and to embrace life once again. The third thing is something that is kind of unique, and we know about it here in Minnesota more than a lot of other places, right? You know what I'm talking about? When I gave this sermon down at Jordan Towers on Thursday, one of the ladies said, yeah, it rusts out our cars. Wasn't exactly what I was thinking about. But what it does is it melts ice, right? So if we're to be the salt of the earth, perhaps what we're being called to do is to melt the iciness in the hearts of those folks who refuse to believe in this kingdom of heaven. These folks who do not want to love and care and be kind. We melt those iciness in their hearts so they become more kind and more compassionate and create a kinder and gentler world in which to live. And then what does light do? A couple things light does, right? You come in here at 6 o'clock in the morning, it's kind of dark, right? You turn on the lights, what happens? Kids tell you the dark goes away, right? Pushes the dark away. But even when the lights are on, if you look around, you're still, look under that pew, under that pew, look over that corner. There's still darkness there, right? What Jesus is saying by making us the light of the world, and we light up the room, is that no longer is the kingdom of this world, the kingdom that's run by power and control and oppression and injustice and all those other kind of things, that kingdom is no longer the dominant kingdom. Now the kingdom that's the dominant kingdom is the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of light, the kingdom of God's compassion and kindness and mercy for others. The other thing that light does, right, is when you come into somewhere that's lighted, you can see what's going on, right? You can see things. And so as the light of the world, what we're called to do then is to help illuminate those places where God's kingdom is at work in the world, where people are extending kindness and compassion and care and support, where people are reaching out to others who are in need. All those places where God is at work in the world, we kind of help lift that up and show that to other people so that they can see what's going on. That's Jesus' commission to his disciples, to us as individuals, and to the church as well. You know, God, we are all blessed. And as the saying goes, God blesses us for a reason, right? We aren't blessed so we can just go, that feels good, right? And just to bask in that blessing. But we're called to be a blessing to others. And so in this world where it seems like people spend so much time kind of devaluing each other because of our race, our nationality, or our ethnicity, or we spend so much time demeaning other people because they talk differently than we do, or they look differently than we do, or they think differently than we do, or their religious views or political views are different than ours. Jesus brings us a whole new vision of the way the world can be. We are called to live into that vision. We're invited to live into that vision. So what does that look like? I think that it means that when we meet up with folks who are different than we are, rather than kind of avoiding them or pushing them to the side, or trying to get them under our control and use them for our own advantage, perhaps what we can do is be curious about them. Curious enough to go and ask them who they are. Tell me a little bit about you. Where do you come from? Why do you do things the way that you do? Why do you believe the things that you believe? And listen to what they have to say. And hope that in the process that they too will be curious about us and want to know where we come from and why we believe and do the things that we do. And then a conversation happens where we, I think, come to the place where we discover that, you know what? We're not all that different. And we can find those places of commonality where we can work together to make this world a kinder and gentler place in which to live. As pastors, we got to pass little stories. And we forget sometimes what stories we tell to people. So if you've heard this story, you're going to hear it again. But when I was in Mankato, I had a mentor who's now in his middle 90s. But at the time he was in his 80s, and we used to get together every other week for coffee. And he would tell me stories, and I would listen to these stories. And of course, in the stories you learn stuff, right? And he told me one time this story about when he and his wife and another couple went to Washington, D.C. to tour the sites and see everything that's going on. And they didn't really have enough money to stay in a hotel in Washington, D.C., right? So they stayed somewhere outside of town. And they were in their 80s, so they weren't too keen on driving into Washington, D.C. because they didn't know where they were going in their cars. So instead, they took the bus. And what happened is they took the bus, they went through kind of one of those sort of run-down areas in Washington. And at one of the stops, there was an Afro-American mother and her child who got on the bus. And he said, I sat and I watched them. And I watched as that mother fussed over her son. How she checked to make sure he had his backpack, and that his hat was on right, and they had his coat. And then when they got to their stop, the boy got off, And he was going to school. He said, I watched that mother as she watched her child go from the bus all the way to the door of the school. He said, when I saw that, I realized that that's exactly what my mother used to do. Because he realized that mothers all over, what we want for our children is their well-being. We want them to be safe. We want them to know that they're loved. We want to protect them. Right? And he realized that we aren't all that very different from one another. One of the things that, as followers of Christ, we are called to do, and I think one of the goals in our lives, is that we would honor and respect every person we encounter in the course of our days. And to realize that we are all pretty much the same. And that even in spite of our differences, that there's a lot of places where we can get along with one another. So in this world where people, so, can you feel it? I'm just going to go back to that. Can you feel it? Jesus is happening. It's strange. It's something unusual. It's something revolutionary. But Jesus is changing everything. Jesus is lightening it. And for that we say, thanks be to God. Amen.